Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we have something quite interesting to take a look at. We have a set that was released this year on Schleich's website, kind of under the radar of almost everybody, and a dinosaur that Schleich has never released before, which I actually was really excited about, even if it does look pretty strange. I was still excited about it because it's also a species of dinosaur that very rarely you ever see a figure of. It's a Dakotaraptor in the Schleich line, and I thought that was cool enough that I really wanted to get my hands on it. The only problem is this is a pretty expensive set. It's like $70 I think for this set, but it was recently on sale on the Schleich website. They had, drastically reduced a lot of their stuff, so I went ahead and purchased it for a good bit cheaper than that. I think it was like right around $50 or something, which even that is still a whole lot of money and way more money than this set is probably going to be worth. But I'm pretty excited to check it out. The vehicle does look pretty fun, but obviously I'm most interested in the Dakotaraptor. And we can see that we very clearly get a human figure, a vehicle, and the dinosaur itself. As far as the box goes, there is that nice image on the front. There's some images on the side and stuff. But once we turn it around, you can basically see all the different images here on the back, sort of showing off the set and what we have, contained within. So I'm definitely excited to get a look at this Dakotaraptor, as I've been kind of eyeing it up for quite some time. So let's pop this box open and check it out. So to my surprise, there is a whole lot of pieces in this box. It did sound like something was moving around in the box when I was, bringing it up onto the table and stuff, but I wasn't expecting to have to put the vehicle together entirely on my own. But apparently here we are, and that's what we've got to do. So I'm going to assemble the vehicle, and then we'll come back and check it out once it's actually put together. So there we go. We now have it all put together, and I will say it was actually kind of fun putting it together. At first, I was a little off-put by the fact that I had to put it together, and I really don't know why, because I've had Schleich sets like this in the past that I had to put together, and I think they just do it just to give you a little extra fun, so you can, assemble it and be proud of, I guess, how you assembled it. The directions are pretty easy to understand and follow, and for the most part I feel like even kids could probably put it together. I think you'd have to have slightly older children, but it's not complicated at all to put together, and it does look pretty cool once it's actually finished. So as always, let's go ahead and jump straight to a closer look at all of this and check it out from there. So beginning with the vehicle itself, the vehicle's pretty cool. Again, there is quite a bit to assemble. It does take a little while. I probably spent, I would say, about a half hour or so putting it together, but it does look pretty cool, and it also looks very Schleich-like. The thing that's not that great is you can see when it comes to fine detail, there's not really much to be found. It doesn't have a whole lot when it comes to a fine detailing standpoint, but it does still have a pretty cool look to it. This area is actually pretty decently detailed. It does have a pretty cool look to it and everything. You can see the inside looks quite nice. We can actually pop this up to take a closer look at the inside of the vehicle and everything, and again, the detail, same deal for the inside. The detail's not really super impressive. You can see for the most part everything's kind of smoothed over without any kind of real texturing or anything to it. The figure does have a good bit as far as maneuverability as well as playability though, but I don't think we're really going to be able to get much of a visual of all of that from up here with the closer look. I think we'll have to wait until we're actually, taking a look at it from a side vantage point down on the ground to really get a better idea of the playability aspect. On top of that, we again have our Schleich human being, and he looks like pretty much your standard when it comes to the Schleich human being figures. He's got himself some blonde, I guess, very, very light blonde hair. He's got blue eyes, and his eyes are huge like they usually are when it comes to the Schleich figures. You can see the sculpt is pretty decent. The paint in the face and everything is pretty decent. His hair is nicely painted, no real sloppiness that I'm picking up on. The shirt also looks okay. You can see there's wrinkles and stuff within the shirt, giving it some nice life. He also has that Triceratops skull silhouette there on his shirt, which is something that is associated with actually most of the logos and everything on the truck. He has his sleeves pulled up here. You can see the arms are decently sculpted. Same deal for the hands. You can see the fingers and everything. The knuckles and the fingers also look pretty good. As you move down, you can see the pants are painted with a brownish tone. They also include pockets and wrinkles and all of that stuff to add extra life to the figure. And again, he's wearing some boots, which are painted with a black, and they are also pretty nicely detailed. As far as the articulation goes, It didn't look like he had any neck articulation, so nothing going on there. Arm articulation, which is basically just a swivel, doesn't come out away from the body. Same deal for the legs, but the legs articulate together. So when it comes to a human being, he's definitely not the best that you'll find out there, but he's pretty much what you would expect for a Schleich human being figure. And then we've got the star of the show, in my opinion, which is the Dakotaraptor, and it definitely doesn't look so much like a Dakotaraptor. I mean, it's definitely got that Schleich look to it, but I guess it could be worse. The head sculpt looks pretty decent, as we have some nice looking scale, detail, and skin texture here. I like that you can see various sizes of scales up here on the top of the snout, but then as you move down here to the lower jaw, we mostly have a very interesting, very large scaling down there. You've got some nice variations of color here with the face including numerous different browns. We can see the nostrils sculpted, and they as well have been highlighted with a darker tone. You can obviously see the feathering picking up here on the top of the head, and then of course on the side of the face here as we move back. The feathering does look pretty decent. We have fairly large eyes for the figure, painted with a kind of a greenish tone and a black pupil. They don't look very good. They're kind of sloppy and very large. We do have an articulated jaw for the figure. The teeth actually look fairly decent for being Schleich teeth, which is a plus. You know, you normally get pretty rough looking teeth on most Schleich dinosaurs nowadays, especially if they're a carnivore, but these actually look pretty good. You can see for the most part, they seem to be sculpted almost individually and painted pretty nicely. We have a red tongue on the inside of the mouth as well, and some okay detail up there on the inside of the mouth, but nothing too overly impressive. You can also see some red kind of following along there around the eye socket. As you move back, we've got some darker browns for this little area of feathering. It's just a little bit bigger, I would say, than what we see in most places. As you move down through the course of the figure, though, you can see we primarily have like kind of fluffy feathering, almost emu-like, which isn't exactly what I would expect to see for this type of dinosaur, but I guess maybe. And, you know, you can also see a little red running down along the side there. There's also a dark wash present on the figure, which is something Schleich does quite often. As you move down into the arms, you do have some plumage here leading off of the arms. We have like some reddish browns for those areas, and they look pretty good, especially when you get nice and close and you look at the actual fine detail of those feathers. They are definitely nicely done. And then of course you have finer feathering moving along the course of the arm. The dark wash definitely helps to add a little extra variation of color there. Moving out into the hands, you can see the fingers are decently sculpted. The hands have some nicely sculpted nails. They are painted with a dark brown. Definitely a lot of variations of browns on this figure. Then as we move back here into the body, we have some really weird looking feathering on the figure, and it almost looks like ramen noodles here as you move back into the side of the dinosaur. Such strange fine detail for the feathering right there. But you can also see we have a darker brown kind of moving along the back, lighter tones here in certain areas that just transition back and forth. Some more feathering as you lead down. I actually think this is a pretty interesting area of feathering right here on the figure that you can see leading off of the back of the thigh. Not something you see too often. And then we transition back to a skin texture for the raptor. As you move down, you can see we have very large scale detail as you lead down. We've got the sickle claw and everything moving down into the feet. The nails are painted with a dark brown, but it's almost the same dark brown that we have for the feet, so they don't stand out as, you know, nicely as they probably could. We can see dew claws over there as well. And then as you move up and lead out toward the tail, some more red kind of randomly showing back up, some more dark browns, and more of that lighter tone as you lead out to the tail feathers, which there is a nice little display of plumage out here, and they are painted pretty nicely with some dark browns and then some reddish tones that seem to be highlighting certain areas of those feathers, and they actually look pretty decent out there. I actually like that. The underside also looks quite nice, and you can really see how highly detailed the feathers are. It's very strange that they could sculpt feathers out to look this nice here, and then this hideous over here. It's very, very weird. But if you turn the raptor around, you can see the dinosaur has its head looking up. It's also leaning slightly toward its left. No big differences on one side of the face compared to the other, or even leading down into the neck, because the turn isn't drastic enough to really make a different look. As you lead down into the arms, same can be said for the arms, and I can't really discuss the positioning of the arms being different because the arms are actually articulated, so you can put the arms wherever you want. So on top of the articulated jaw, we also have articulated arms, which I think is a pretty nice touch. I actually do enjoy when companies include articulated arms, especially on raptors. But as you lead down, you can see that one leg is taking a step further forward than the other one, which is giving us a little bit of a different visual on this side compared to the other side when it comes to the leg. But the same style sculpt, same style detailing and everything throughout. And obviously the sickle claws are relaxed on both sides, even though the raptor's kind of like in the midst of, I guess, fending off a vehicle, like a very large vehicle. You would think maybe those claws would be up and ready to attack, but not so much. And then as you lead back here, you can see again the tail looks the same from the other side. Obviously the tail feathers are kind of flat because currently the tail looks to be standing on the ground. The underside also sports some feather detail moving along the underside of the tail, but then as we lead up into the stomach and stuff, we do return back to that skin textured look. So it's absolutely not the best Dakotaraptor we'll ever see, but it is at least a Dakotaraptor, and that's something we don't see often, so it's okay, I guess. As far as the playability of the vehicle goes, you can actually lift the front part up. You can see it sort of extends up right here, and then can go back down, which is pretty fun. And on top of that, you can, of course, lift up the glass to look on the inside of the vehicle, which is pretty cool. You also have, of course, the wheels here that are very stiff. The actual movability of the vehicle, you can see it is pretty stiff. It does go, but you like really have to push down on it to get it to go. So that's not all that smooth. Obviously, we can see we can articulate these, and you can actually pull down each side. So you can completely open that area up, which is pretty fun. Again, adding just a little bit more playability to the set. You can also move the weapon forward and back. You can't swivel it or anything, so that's really all that does. We also have the ability to shoot the weapon, so we'll go ahead and shoot this. Actually, we'll bring the Dakotaraptor in here, and we'll shoot him right in the face. And it didn't really do much, but it does, like, take off, and it kind of swivels around. There's, like, a sort of, if you put it back in here, like a wind-up effect, so you have to keep winding it to increase the power of the weapon and how fast it shoots out. But it's not going to really do a whole lot of damage, I would say, to our Dakotaraptor regardless. You can also pull this piece up, and that articulates as well. I think that's really about it. Obviously, the wheels can move around a little bit. I haven't noticed a whole lot outside of those areas when it comes to the playability aspect of the set, so I think that's probably the most that we have going on, but I may discover more later, who knows, because this vehicle does seem to have a good bit going on with it. But as far as a size goes for our set, for the vehicle, actually let's get him out of here, throw him on his face. If we go from the front of the vehicle to the back, about 11.5 inches, or right around 29 and... yeah, a little over 29 centimeters for a height. The highest point would be the top of the weapon there, about 9 3/4 inches, or around the 24.5, closing in on 25 centimeters, but not quite there. The human figure is in the 3 3/4 inch size range, or right around 9.5 centimeters. And then our Dakotaraptor, lengthwise from the tail to the snout, about 7.5 inches, or 19 centimeters. And then for a height, about 6 inches or 15 centimeters, maybe a little over the 15 centimeter mark. For a size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Colovosaurus, Robert Muldoon, and the Collect A Human Being here next to this interesting Dakotaraptor Schleich set. And you can see the vehicle is definitely quite nicely sized. You can also see the human being is right there in the same size as the Mattel human beings. And our Dakotaraptor is also quite nicely sized. But I think what we would really want to see is maybe a few comparisons next to the Dakotaraptor itself. So let's move everything else out of here. There we've got a size difference between the Mattel Velociraptor and the Schleich Dakotaraptor, which you can see that Dakotaraptor is a bit larger. Then we have a size comparison with the Epic Attack version of the Velociraptor from Mattel, and you can see if we put the two in the same position, they are absolutely the same size, extremely similar in size. Then we have a comparison next to an average Schleich Velociraptor. This is one of their older versions of the Velociraptor. And then a comparison next to one of the newer Velociraptors from Schleich. Not exactly their newest, but definitely, again, a newer version than the previous one, and this one is, I think, the same similar size as the most recent version from Schleich. So, giving you another idea of a size difference here between the Velociraptor and Dakotaraptors from Schleich. So this 2023 release from Schleich of their Dakotaraptor and random vehicle is pretty cool, but not really great. It's definitely not worth the price of admission. If you ask me, again, they're asking like $69.99, I think, for the set originally. Not even remotely worth that price. Like, that price is astronomical in comparison to what you actually get. But if you can catch it on sale or at a discounted price, I can say it's not terrible. It's, potentially worth a purchase. If you've got a kid at home that likes vehicles and stuff like that and loves dinosaurs, it's not a bad way to go. And, it's got some pretty fun playability to it. The vehicle itself looks really neat. It's also quite different than most vehicles that I've seen, associated with dinosaur toys. So that in its own right is pretty cool. It also has a lot of playability to it. And even though it doesn't have a very highly detailed appearance, it's still alright, again, for what it is, and I could see some pretty cool dioramas or dino toy photography taken if you have it like a Jurassic Park type setting and stuff. You could probably come up with some pretty fun stuff to use the vehicle for. On top of that, you do have a human figure. He's okay, definitely, not really that great. There's not a whole lot to him, whether it be the detailing aspect, the paintwork aspect, or the articulation aspect. He's pretty average, I guess I could say. So he's not great, but he's not bad by any means. And then we also have the Dakotaraptor. The Dakotaraptor, I think, looks interesting. It looks very Schleichish, that's for sure. You can take that as a good thing or a bad thing, depending on your preference. I do like the Schleich figures, and I actually really quite like the Schleich style. I think their figures look neat because they look quite different than most, and they always have that style, usually, unless you look at the recent Concavinator, that you look at the figure and you're like, wow, that's definitely a Schleich figure, and this one really does have that look and feel to it. It's got a pretty darn highly detailed appearance to it. Some feather detail on it looks really nice. Some feather detail doesn't look so great at all. The paint job looks pretty good, though. I will say they've done a great job of choosing naturalistic tones of color and applying it to the figure, so that aspect does look really nice. It has an articulated jaw and articulated arms as well, which is pretty fun, and a decent size. It's not huge, but a decent size, and the fact that it is in general a Dakotaraptor is really quite cool because we just don't get those. So overall, again, if you do want to buy this, I would recommend waiting until you see it for a discounted price, but even if you are interested in grabbing it at full price, I will include a link in the description to where you can do that on the Schleich website, which is where I purchased mine. So make sure if you'd like to grab it, you go do that, and also like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.